This time I'm going to be talking about the Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice trailer. The film isn't coming out until 2016, but I've finally got around to doing a video about it, so let's jump straight into it. Right from the beginning of this trailer, you can tell that the film is going to be very heavily influenced by the Frank Miller The Dark Knight Returns comic. The first thing you hear is a load of people talking about Superman, some positive, some negative, but it's probably going to be some news reporters or some interviewers, or talk show hosts, things like that, as there are in the Frank Miller comic. You see a distant shot of a statue, which straight away looks like a Superman statue, and in the background you see a cityscape, which I'm going to assume is Metropolis, and there appears to be some construction work going on in the background, so this could be as a result of the big battle that Superman had at the end of Man of Steel, which would have had a lot of repercussions in the Superman world, and may have affected the way that people perceive Superman himself, whether he's good or he's bad. The trailer is very well shot. There's a line in the voiceover where someone said that they're looking for a saviour, and as soon as the word saviour is said, Superman appears for the first time. He looks very similar to the last time that we saw him in Man of Steel. His costume is a little bit brighter, but it looks almost identical to that. Then we see some shots of other people. They could be protesting, they could be cheering, we don't know at this point. Some of them have their faces painted, which could be a reference to the Frank Miller comic in which there's a large criminal gang called the Mutants. There's a shot of Superman holding up what appears to be a Russian satellite, so this appears to suggest that Superman is not just a hero for Metropolis or America, that he appears to be going around the world saving things. Unless, of course, that satellite was about to crash into Metropolis or Gotham or another city in America and he just stopped it, we don't know yet. There's a shot of Superman entering an underground bunker and coming into contact with some soldiers who have the Superman symbol on their arm. Whether they are a special forces unit designed to keep Superman in check, or whether they are assisting him in some way, we don't know yet. I think it's been suggested somewhere that it could be a dream sequence, so they might not even be real. We also hear the voiceover of Jesse Eisenberg, who's playing Lex Luthor, talking about devils coming from the sky, obviously referencing Superman himself, so for some reason he has a hatred towards Superman already. Whether that starts from the beginning of the film or whether he was affected some way by the events of Man of Steel, we don't know, but it'll be curious to find out what Superman has done to anger him so much. Of course, he might not even be referring to Superman, he could be referring to Zod and his soldiers in the previous film. But we'll have to wait and see. Cut into these scenes, we see the statue again coming closer and closer to the screen. Then eventually the camera pans round to the front of the statue and we see painted on the front of Superman the words "False God." So there's obviously a lot of opposition to Superman in this film. Why there's so much opposition, we're not exactly sure, but I think it's probably something to do with the destruction that was caused as a result of the fights in Man of Steel. After this we hear another voiceover from Jeremy Irons, who's playing Alfred. He's talking about something that turns a good man cruel, and then we see the first shot of Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. He's doing a typical brooding Batman / Bruce Wayne face, and then we see the new Batman suit for the first time. There's been loads of pictures released of it before, so everyone knew what it looked like, but it's good to see it on screen. It's very heavily influenced by the Frank Miller comic. It's a bulkier suit. It doesn't look as practical as the suit we've seen from the Christopher Nolan trilogy, but it appears to have body armour built into it. It seems to have a lot of scratches and marks all over it, so it looks like it's been in use for some time, which would play into the story that Batman has been operating for quite a while by the time this film starts, and he's an older Batman, so that would make sense. There's a shot of Batman standing in some abandoned building holding something in his hand. You can't see what it is, but just off to the side of this shot there's a column which has a little Easter egg on it, and it's the Riddler question mark. I don't think the Riddler's going to be in this film, but it's nice to see a little Easter egg just to know that that character is in this universe in some way. Following this, there's a shot of what I'm going to assume is the Batwing flying over a dock area and shooting people on the ground. Now, Batman is famous for not wanting to kill anybody. He has killed a few people in comic history, but that's one of his main rules, is not to kill whoever he's trying to bring down. So they're going to have to explain how the Batwing is appearing to blow people up without killing them, unless the Batman in this film has taken a darker turn and is willing to kill people. We also see a brief shot of the Batmobile. It's a brand new vehicle from anything we've seen before. It looks to be slightly more low profile. It still has a very military tank-like appearance, but it appears to be a little more road friendly and looks to be a lot more manoeuvrable. But notably, it does have guns very obviously on the front of it. So it's obviously ready for a battle. Then we see Batman himself walking towards the camera. As I said, it's a very bulky costume, and Ben Affleck has obviously had to do some working out to fill this costume. He doesn't look as lean as in the Christopher Nolan trilogy. He looks more muscle than anything else. I really like how he looks more like a comic book character rather than just a man in a military suit. So that's pretty good. Then we see a shot of the stereotypical Batman standing on the top of something tall for some reason. But this shot is a little bit different from ones we've seen before. He appears to be holding a rifle. Again, he's famous for not wanting to kill anyone. Although in Frank Miller's comic he toes that line a little bit more closely. He is willing to kill. So is this rifle going to be killing someone, or is it just a threat? Probably the part of the trailer that most people are talking about, and have been for some time because the images were released at Comic-Con some time ago, is the shot of Batman in an armoured suit. This shot is very, very heavily influenced by the Frank Miller comic because, as anyone who's read that comic knows, during the fight between Batman and Superman in that comic, Batman is wearing an armoured suit which is built himself specifically for the purpose of fighting Superman. So it looks like exactly what he's done for this film as well. And then we have the line, "Tell me, do you bleed?" which we're assuming it's Batman saying that to Superman, but as we don't actually see him say that, it could be somebody else saying it completely. It could be Lex Luthor saying it. The voice sounds very robotic and filtered through electronics, so it could be Batman in his new suit, but it could be somebody else. Lex Luthor's famous for having a power suit to fight Superman and other people in the comics, so it could be him. It could be someone completely different, we don't know. And then we see Batman and Superman getting ready to have their inevitable fight. There's not much else in the trailer. In fact, there's quite a lot missing from the trailer. But then it is just a teaser trailer. I imagine there'll be a full-length trailer coming out later in the year, which I'll be very excited for. A lot of characters aren't featured in this trailer at all. Wonder Woman, especially, as Aquaman. Lex Luthor isn't seen. You hear him briefly, but he's not seen at all. And we don't know much of the actual plot of the film itself. We just know at some point Batman and Superman are going to have a confrontation about something. The motivation for that fight and the outcome we don't know. And if the rumours are true that some of those shots in that trailer are in a dream sequence, the fight might not even happen. Famously, in the Dark Knight Returns comic, Batman appears to die during the fight with Superman after having a heart attack. We know he doesn't actually die, and he comes back to life, and Superman knows this at the end of the comic. Will that happen? I don't know. It's called Dawn of Justice, and Batman is one of the founding members of the Justice League. Whether he's going to be in the Justice League films, we don't know. As an older Batman, he might not be up to being in the Justice League. We know that there's quite a lot of cameos of other characters that are going to be coming up in either their standalone films or the Justice League films later on. But we really don't know how this film's going to go. It looks to be very heavily influenced on the Frank Miller comic, but I can't imagine they'll do the story exactly for various reasons. One major problem is that they haven't yet introduced kryptonite into the DC Comics universe that they're building. Man of Steel didn't have it. They had the Superman was weak to the atmosphere of Krypton, but no actual kryptonite itself. So that's one of his major weaknesses that they haven't even brought into the franchise yet. Whether they will bring that in, I don't know. I imagine they will, and I imagine that's what Lex Luthor's probably going to use against him. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a pretty good trailer. It got me really excited for the film, and I'm looking forward to seeing more footage and more photos being released. We're gradually getting little snippets of information over the months, and I imagine we'll get a lot more towards the end of this year, ready for 2016 when the film comes out. If you've got any comments, leave them below, and stay tuned for the next trailer talk.